His story is one of the most foundational in human history, a tale of a prince, a fugitive, and a prophet. In an era of oppression, a decree went out from Pharaoh to silence the future of the Hebrew people. But one mother, Jochebed, defied the order, placing her infant son in a basket of rushes and trusting him to the river. Drawn from the water by Pharaoh's own daughter, the child was named Moses and raised in the very heart of the empire. Raised as a prince, he was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians, mighty in words and deeds. Yet the luxury of the palace could not drown out the cries of his people, the Hebrews. At 40 years of age, Moses witnessed an Egyptian taskmaster beating a Hebrew slave. In a moment of rage, he intervened. Forced to flee from Pharaoh's wrath, the prince of Egypt became a fugitive in the land of Midian. At a well in the wilderness, Moses found refuge and a new life among the Midianites. He married Zipporah and spent the next 40 years as a humble shepherd, far from the halls of power. The desert became his school, teaching him the patience and humility needed for a destiny he couldn't yet imagine. Then, at 80 years of age, his life took a divine turn. He saw a bush that burned but was not consumed. "Take off your sandals," the voice commanded, "for the place where you are standing is holy ground." God revealed his name, "I am who I am," and commissioned Moses to return to Egypt to lead his people to freedom. Despite his fears and slow speech, God promised to be with him, appointing his brother Aaron as his spokesman. With a staff in his hand and the promise of God in his heart, Moses returned to the land of his birth. The message to Pharaoh was simple but absolute. "Thus says the Lord, let my people go." But Pharaoh's heart was hardened. He increased the burdens of the Israelites, testing the faith of Moses. Then came the plagues. The Nile, the lifeblood of Egypt, was turned to blood. Frogs, gnats, and flies swarmed the land, showing the impotence of Egypt's gods. The livestock perished, and boils broke out upon man and beast alike, yet Pharaoh remained defiant. Hail and fire rained from the sky, and locusts consumed every green thing that remained. A deep, terrifying darkness covered the land for 3 days, a darkness that could be felt. The final plague was the most devastating, the death of every firstborn in Egypt. Only those under the blood were spared. This was the first Passover, a memorial of God's deliverance and justice. At last, Pharaoh surrendered. Hundreds of thousands of Israelites began their journey toward the Promised Land. But Pharaoh changed his mind once more. His elite chariots thundered across the desert to bring them back. Trapped between the mountains, the sea, and the army, the people cried out in terror. "Do not be afraid," Moses declared. "Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord." A powerful wind blew, and the sea parted. The Israelites crossed on dry ground with water like walls to their left and right. In one of history's greatest miracles, a nation passed through the heart of the sea. When the Egyptians followed, the waters returned and the power of Pharaoh was broken forever. On the other side, they sang a song of victory, celebrating the God who had delivered them from bondage. Their journey was only beginning. Ahead lay 40 years of testing, growth, and divine provision. When they hungered, God provided bread from heaven, manna, which sustained them day after day. When they thirsted, water gushed from the rock at Moses' command, quenching the thirst of a nation. 3 months after the Exodus, they arrived at Mount Sinai, where God would establish a covenant with them. Amidst thunder and smoke, Moses ascended the mountain and received the law, the foundation of a holy nation. He gave them the 10 Commandments, etched by the very finger of God into stone. It was a code of conduct that would change the world, emphasizing justice, morality, and love for God and neighbor. Yet, even in the shadow of God's presence, the people faltered, turning to an idol of gold. Moses stood in the gap, pleading for mercy for his people. His leadership was defined by his selfless love for them. They built the tabernacle, a portable sanctuary where the presence of God would dwell among them. By day, a pillar of cloud led them. By night, a pillar of fire gave them light. They were never alone. When they reached the edge of the Promised Land, 12 spies were sent to scout the territory. 10 spies brought a report of fear, focusing on giants. Only Joshua and Caleb spoke with faith. Because of their unbelief, that generation was sentenced to wander for 40 years until a new generation was ready. For 4 decades, Moses led them through the trials and triumphs of the wilderness. In moments of rebellion and judgment, Moses continued to provide a path to healing and restoration. In a moment of human weakness, Moses struck the rock instead of speaking to it. This act of disobedience carried a heavy price. He would lead them to the edge, but he himself would not enter the land he had dreamed of for so long. Before his departure, he appointed Joshua to lead the people into their inheritance, ensuring the mission continued. His final words, recorded in the book of Deuteronomy, were a call to remember God's faithfulness and obey his commands. At the age of 120, his eyes still bright and his strength undiminished, Moses ascended Mount Nebo for the last time. From the summit, God showed him the land. From Gilead to Dan, from the plains of Jericho to the Great Sea, his work was finished. He had seen the glory of God and led a nation from slavery to the threshold of their home. Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, and God himself buried him. Since that day, no prophet has arisen in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. His legacy is not just the law, but a life of faith that continues to inspire billions across the globe. The story of Moses is the story of us all, a journey from bondage to freedom, led by the hand of the Almighty.